Liars are an experimental rock band who were formed in 2000. Wikipedia describes them as being a joint US and Australian band, but I know that they were formed in the States and were operating in the States, so I'm guessing that means that one of their members or more is Australian, or was. Angus Andrew is their front man and is their only constant member that's been with them for the whole of their history. And at one point in their history, they did a classic relocation to Berlin for a while, following in the footsteps of people like David Bowie and Queen and Iggy Pop and Brian Eno and others who also have done that. They are known to have pushed experimental boundaries and kept changing the style of what they were doing, and they have created 10 studio albums so far. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the first album by Liars, and it's my first encounter with them as a band, so therefore obviously with this album as well. The full name of the album is They Threw Us All in a Trench and Stuck a Monument on Top, which is quite an interesting name for an album. And I would describe this cautiously as being experimental punk. I think it kind of starts with a punk attitude, but then kind of moves on from there, not just kind of generally as the style, but also somewhat through the album as it goes through, it moves on. So it starts with kind of punk attitude. It's got the rawness, the musical feel to it. It's got a jangly, distorted guitar, a kind of thick, distorted bass, and it certainly would describe it as being maybe musically adventurous. So there's a lot of discords and an unusual approach to harmony, but it seems quite deliberate, and I think they knew exactly what they were doing with this. Interestingly, I don't always get on with things that are discordant like this, but I quite like this. I think the feel was good. It's got energy without being too abrasive. The rhythm section's really strong, especially the drums. Some of the track names are a bit odd, which kind of signals something unusual. So, yeah. The vocals are mostly overdriven and hard to hear. They sound like they're being sung somewhat through a loud hailer or compressed in tone and with a bit of distortion on them. It's got a typical kind of off-tune punk singing, but it kind of works in the context of the music. Occasionally, the backing kind of gets more rhythmic, and it felt like it was kind of dipping into some funk ideas at times, but it's definitely quite progressive in feel. And as I said, as the album progresses, it moves away from the kind of from the punk idea and just becomes more experimental. They slowly introduce more and more noise elements, so that's non-musical noises, sound effects, snatches of speech, bits from electronic instruments as well. There's still managed to keep it with quite a sparse type feel. The last track is 30 minutes long. It starts as a kind of space rock-like thing with a drum and bass soundscape pattern that's kind of going over and over again, and then with sound effects and kind of speech clips and little bits of sounds from the guitar, which is not really kind of musical, but more like sound effects done with the guitar. And then at about the 10-minute mark, it settles in to be a repeated thing that just cycles round and round for about 20 minutes. So the first time I listened through, I did listen through all the way through that. I found it getting a bit repetitive. The second time through, I have to say, I cut that short. I didn't listen all the way through. So on the vinyl, apparently that this was what's called a locked groove, which is where when you get to the inside of the circle and it kind of goes round and round with the needle, trying to work out which way I need to do it for the video, that it actually has sound in that bit where it goes round, and so you keep hearing the same bit over and over again. It was a recognised thing to be done, so if you left it playing on the vinyl, you could let that play forever, basically. So overall, it's experimental sometimes. I don't go for the experimental stuff. On this occasion, I quite liked it. I quite like the aesthetics of it. It's slightly quirky. That appealed to me. So, yeah. not bad from my point of view. I'd love to know what you think, so please talk to me through the comments box, and that's it from me for now.
Past films will burn us in our bedrooms. Past films will burn us in our bedrooms. Past films will burn us in our